Hello and welcome to Birkbeck's Teaching and Learning podcast. My name is Lucy Trinard and I work in the digital education team. I'll be your host for today, and today we are joined by Sean Green, Interim Chief Information Officer, and Professor Joanne Leal, Pro Vice-Chancellor for Innovation and Academic Development. We're here today to talk about the AI Summit, which was held early July here at Birkbeck. It was our first AI Summit, and we'll explore their views on the role of AI in higher education, any key takeaways from the conference, and what vitally comes next for the university. AI has taken up a lot of discussion inside and outside higher education, and it has been really part of our landscape for a while now. So before we talk about the summit, I want to know, Sean, what your perspective on AI is in higher education.
Well, I think it's changed since we had the summit, which was fascinating because of the variety of speakers and backgrounds of individuals in the room that we had. I think it might be worth just saying that I had a kind of a sense of, as everyone does, of generative AI and the impact that's made in the world since ChatGPT first got launched, maybe over 18 months ago. In HE, I see it as both an opportunity and a challenge, a disruptor and enabler. We within Birkbeck have been doing quite a lot of work and exploring its potential in recent months. And I think with the help of Joanne and other colleagues, we're really kind of starting to explore the kind of guardrails as well as the kind of areas that we can start to use it in a very proactive way. For example, we're already using Copilot, many of our professional services and academic staff, both the free version and the paid for version, to do things like summarize meetings and create our own specialist agents to do stuff for us. So it is already showing sort of productivity gains for us. But I also, I suppose, recognise that there was a gap in terms of our sort of more structured and collaborative conversations. And when Joanne came up with the idea, out of nowhere, it seemed, for the AI Summit, I was just really excited and really wanted to kind of embrace it and kind of work with it, as the kind of one of the technical leads in the university.
And Joanne, just thinking about how Sean is coming from information services, but you sit in a completely different environment at the university. So from your perspective, what was your experience of AI in higher education before we had the summit?
Yeah, thanks, Lucy. I think as somebody who also still teaches, that my real engagement with AI and HE was around assessment, the thing that sort of seems to dominate the discussion for us in HE about how we can manage students' AI use in assessment. And that seemed to me such a narrow conversation and a narrow point of focus. And I became increasingly convinced that we needed to join that conversation to the conversations that were going on elsewhere in the college with our professional services colleagues, with our academic colleagues, with researchers, and try and find a way to move the discussion forward so we could get it away just from that focus on AI and education, to think about the ethical issues, to think how we can educate ourselves into understanding AI better, and then bring that back to the university in productive ways.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the summit itself was a huge success. We had a lot of members of staff joining internally at the university, but we also had colleagues from elsewhere in higher education join us, elsewhere from the more techie IT world that came to join us. So it was a really fruitful time together. Moving on to the summit itself, Joan, what stood out to you most over that 2-day period?
I think what stood out most was how engaged both our colleagues and our visitors were, that it's clearly a topic that everybody wants to talk about. And that was great. And everybody did talk, and everybody brought their experiences into the room in ways that meant, I think, all of us, both those of us who are probably less knowledgeable and those who are more knowledgeable about AI, had something to learn at the conference. I mean, I mentioned particularly, I think we had a keynote speaker on the first day, Kate Devlin from King's. And I think she started us off brilliantly by just challenging us to think about what are the questions around AI and HE, what's the hype around it, what are the anxieties around it, and to bust a few of the myths, I think, around what AI and education in higher education means. And that was a really good start, and we kept referring back to some of those things in the course of the conference. And then on the second day, we had James Wood from Bangor, who really got into the nitty-gritty of this thorny question of AI in assessment, and asked us to think about it in new ways. And that again, fed into what we were talking about. So I think, the way that our discussions were informed by our external speakers, but then also by our internal speakers who brought questions and practices and experiences and knowledge into the room in ways that I think were very fruitful.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a similar vein. I really valued the diversity of the speakers and the sessions and the just general knowledge sharing in the room from, online and in the room physically from our colleagues who were very open to be challenged, to provide ideas and examples from their own backgrounds and experience. So my hope, if you like, when going into the conference was more than fulfilled in terms of knowledge sharing and collaboration and starting to create sort of a vision as to what would it mean for Birkbeck going forward in the future. I particularly liked, alongside the keynote speakers, who were really fantastic, really kind of insightful, I liked some of the roundtables that we had. The first roundtable was on responsible use of AI. I wasn't actually able to go to the creative use of AI in HE or in the wider world, but there was a session on that, and I subsequently listened to it on our YouTube channel. And that was brilliant. And a couple of things I took out of that, of watching that, was around not only being curious, as we all need to be with AI and some of this new technology, but also being playful. To give ourselves time to play with it. The tools are there for us to experiment with, learn from. So, that was one of the key takeaways I took, certainly from that session, being playful.
Have you found yourself kind of experimenting in that space, Sean? Have you been creating images or limericks?
Well, I've been playing with Copilot. I talked about using agents to kind of help. So I've been playing around with ideas within Copilot. I've used Copilot to generate some images. I got it to do a dog on the moon. And that was quite funny. But yeah, I think that's the kind of thing, just to just let our creative juices go in and start use the tools and just see what it generates. But yeah, it would be good to kind of do more of that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it is this kind of unknown world. And I think within higher education, we've been really thinking about it, as Joanne has said, thinking about assessment and this kind of big worry and this big scare. And it is, and that's not to play that down. But also thinking about this other side where in other industries, other sectors, they are using it very fruitfully and engaging with it in a totally different way than we are here. So it's been a really good opportunity to sort of expand our minds on how we interact with generative AI. Joanne, after the summit, did you feel like your kind of thoughts and experience of AI has changed? Or
Definitely, I would say before the AI summit, I was I would say a little bit anxious and a little bit resistant in the sense that I wasn't hugely knowledgeable, and I hadn't had much opportunity to use generative AI tools. And I had got caught up in the conversations around assessment, but also thinking about my own teaching practice and what I might need to do to do I need to do anything? Do I need to change? Do I need to do anything differently? And that can often feel quite challenging. So I think that's where I was before. Afterwards, I would say definitely more on the glass half full side of the AI question, in that I could see much more of the potential. And not just I can see the potential for students, I can see much more of the potential for pedagogies. I can see definitely the potential for other parts of my working life in relation to just, I don't know, the things like generating PowerPoint slides and organizing my meetings and other just the simple tasks that can take up so much time. So I saw lots of opportunities there, but I also felt we reflected on some of the bigger questions. Where were we going to be as universities in a world in which knowledge is gained differently to the way it's gained now through the powerful worlds that AI is opening up? And I also felt more optimistic about those bigger conversations as well. So I felt I learned lots of small scale stuff, but also got a chance to reflect on those big questions and felt more positive than I did when I started.
Yeah, certainly. It's nice to kind of recontextualize it and take a moment to reflect on where we are in the sector. And Sean, for you as well, you've talked a bit about how you're engaging with AI maybe in a slightly different way or since the summit. But for Birkbeck, and thinking about where Birkbeck is, has your views on AI and Birkbeck with AI changed after the summit?
Yeah, I think, it kind of made me feel very optimistic that colleagues who came together and shared insight and knowledge from Birkbeck were really up for the challenge. Whilst they recognise, certainly on the teaching side, some of the concerns and risks around assessments, how that's got to change, but they certainly seemed really up for the challenge. And it made me very confident that we would be what I'm calling a fast follower. So, I think Birkbeck are exactly where we need to be in our AI adoption and our AI journey. We're a small university, with limited resources, but we are with lots of smart people who are really embracing the opportunity with the tools that AI provides, both in research and teaching and professional services coming along as well. So it made me very optimistic about the collaboration that colleagues want to have now going forward. Don't just want to kind of do their own little things that they've been doing maybe for their own specialities. And it made me, like Joanne, very optimistic for the future and the conversations that we're going to be having going forward.
Yeah, certainly. Sean, you raised that, and Joanne and I have both touched on it so far, and we can't avoid it too much longer, I don't think. But there is this ongoing concern about AI and student assessment. As a teacher, as a practitioner here at the university, Joanne, how do you think that Birkbeck should be addressing it?
Yeah, this is the big challenge, isn't it, to the whole sector. I think there's no one size fits all answer to this question. I think there will remain disciplines for perhaps forever, but at least for quite some time, where the skills that are being tested through assessment require the students not to use AI, and those might still be tested within, in-person exams or whatever might be the appropriate form of assessment. But I also think there are lots and lots of areas where that's not the case, and where simply trying to sort of hold back the AI tide is not realistic, but nor is it doing our students any favours, in the sense that they're going to go out into workplaces where using AI tools are commonplace. And we need to think about what our learning outcomes are for our modules, and introduce AI practices into those learning outcomes where that's appropriate, and assess in relation to learning outcomes that have embraced the AI challenge. I'm not totally sure what form those will take, but nevertheless, I think that is the challenge for us. And I have to say, work is going on across the college. I went to a meeting with our academic quality and standards colleagues who are doing fantastic work on helping us think through the regulatory frameworks around assessment and how we can stay within those while also transforming our assessment in ways that are appropriate to the practices that our students need to be able to learn and to demonstrate.
Yeah, and I completely agree with Joanne. I don't think there's an easy answer to it, and it's one that will evolve not only within the higher education sector, but within Birkbeck. We will have our own approach, guided by our own policies and our own practices, and in collaboration, with our colleagues in teaching. It won't necessarily be something that we can kind of come up with a single answer to, as Joanne's mentioned. I think we have a good team within information services, the digital education team, that can help colleagues once we start to form our views as to the approach for integrating AI with pedagogy appropriately. Our digital education team can work with colleagues developing skills, training on digital tool sets that can help to detect AI where it's appropriate. And generally kind of build that kind of culture of trust and dialogue ongoing, because these tools are only going to keep evolving. It's not going to be static. So it's an ongoing journey for us as a university to continue to develop our culture, our tools, our practices and our processes to respond to that evolution of AI in now and in the future.
Yeah, I would just, add to that, Sean, because I think you've sort of highlighted there what was something that was quite special about the AI Summit in particular, was that often we have these conferences at the university or other higher education institutions, and you'll see it's a lot of the academic staff talking to other academic staff, or teachers speaking to teachers, or researchers speaking to researchers. And this was really an occasion where we had professional services, information services, academic staff, our research community all present in one space, discussing how AI is affecting the sector as a whole and how we approach that collaboratively. And so there was a real ethos at the summit of how we can kind of upskill together, how we can approach this together, how we can go into policy and guidance for staff and our students in a collaborative way. It's interesting to think about this idea of assessment and how we rethink assessment, but also there's the other side of that too, where it's how AI is working in the classroom and where we integrate AI into learning, and if we integrate AI into learning and how we do that ethically and safely. So, Joanne, I was wondering for you as a teacher, thinking about AI and pedagogy, which you touched on earlier, how you see AI enhancing or replacing learning.
Yeah, that's such a good question. I mean, I've heard conversations, where I was at a dinner the other night where somebody was talking about virtual classrooms in which, the teacher and your fellow students have been replaced by sort of AI generated other students, and that you can have your entire learning experience sort of mimicking the real classroom in an AI generated space. I'm not too worried about that. I think human beings like human beings, and I think we'll always want to congregate and learn from one another. So I don't see that sort of what I would think of as the dystopian future where the human is taken out of the learning space. But I do think what's interesting for me as somebody who has been teaching in HE for a long time is that I now have students in the classroom who are often better informed, better at using AI tools than certainly I am, and come with expectations and ideas and ways of doing things that I want to know about and I want to embrace, so that I'm mirroring them in what I'm delivering in ways that they're familiar with, that allow them to use the skills that they've learned. So I do feel for somebody like me, there's a catch-up process here. And that's where we get to the kind of the training idea. And I do think we do need to support all staff from across the institution in learning how to use these tools effectively. And those who already know can help those of us who are still struggling to meet the needs of our students. So for me, AI is inevitable in the classroom simply because it's everywhere. And why wouldn't our students expect us to be using it in our teaching and learning practices?
I share Joanne's view. I don't see AI as being dystopian. I know a lot of people worry about their jobs. It's always in the news every day and we're all going to lose our jobs. We are in the business of higher education, learning, research. Our business is about being able to help ourselves all the time to adapt, and I think our students to adapt. So I think if any organisation or type of business is going to weather this approach, it'll be higher education, as long as we can adapt. And I think we will. Just going to the summit, I saw that enthusiasm and energy and desire to embrace AI. So I think I see a more positive future for HE and particularly for this organisation.
Following the success of the summit and this kind of ongoing conversation between different parts of the university and our colleagues outside in wider higher education, what do you see, Sean, as the next steps for Birkbeck?
I think we've got a great tool already, which the DigEd team have set up, the AI Connect Hub. That will be like a central space for resources, case studies, guidance, access to tools and skills. So I think that's brilliant. We've already got that set up and we'll carry on developing that and publicising and communicating that. We did talk at the conference a bit about an AI Champions Network. Now, we haven't got that idea fully formed, but in principle, that could be where we have academics, professional services, researchers who will volunteer and, work with, as a smaller community, work with professionals to understand better the tools and the policies, and then use that knowledge to promote it with their colleagues in their different disciplines and departments. And then the third point, the final point for me, was around some of the pilot projects that information services can support and enable the organisation on. We've already got pilot projects going on with a product called Copilot. We are looking at other tools to support research and learning, and we'll get those pilot projects up in the next 12 months. and then if successful, then start rolling those out fairly rapidly. So I'm really excited for the next 12 months at Birkbeck, certainly in terms of some of these actions coming out of the conference.
Yes, I agree with Sean that it's about helping and enabling colleagues through the mechanisms that Sean's discussed to embrace AI. And I do think training is a key part of that. We've already set up a new event, another event, which is to brainstorm with colleagues from across different parts of the college of what what skills are needed and how we should deliver that skills training. Sean mentioned the AI Champions Network, which is definitely an idea. I'm also a big fan of sort of communities of practice, getting people together to support each other and learn from each other's work. So I hope this is an area in which we can also mobilise that idea. I think we should also remember that we are a research institution and we have researchers working at the cutting edge of AI as well. And I think to harness their knowledge and to support our research community, but also get our research community to support us in our endeavours to embrace the future is another important thing that we want to pick up on and do.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've not touched, too heavily today on AI and research, but perhaps that's a conversation that we can have in the future, because I know there is a big conversation going on here at Birkbeck, specifically about AI and research, which would be really interesting to kind of tap into. And so just drawing us towards a close here, what message would you like to give to staff and students after the summit on our learnings and experience?
I think it's all our responsibility to get involved in AI. It will touch every aspect of our life. It already is, so we can't avoid it, and therefore we need to be embracing it in our professional lives. So whether you're in a professional services, a research role, a student-facing role, teaching role, then you need to get involved. You have a role to play. I think, I give a kind of good example to colleagues that, the book industry, they have adapted really well, for many, many years to the onslaught of online bookstores. And they've done that by understanding what their customers want and providing a experience with physical books, that is still growing and people are still buying books. So I think, if we can embrace it, I think we're an institute which has got a really good approach and philosophy and culture to do that. I think then, we've got a very successful future in the use of AI for this organisation.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, well put. I've not heard that analogy of the bookstore, but certainly considering how important it is to interact with things that are going on right in front of us instead of dancing around it or trying to avoid it. And Joanne, thinking about our students, what's your message to them?
To be confident that we are helping them and supporting them on their journey with AI, that we will help them to take the skills they've already developed, or if they've not developed them yet, help them to develop their skills around AI use. In doing so, we will make their learning better, more exciting, more useful, and importantly, that we're going to help them through the use of AI make that connection between what we do here and what they will do in the world of work, sometimes in parallel with their degrees, but certainly when they leave. I think the really important thing is to make sure that for students that we continue to emphasise the relevance of what we do to the world beyond the university, and I think AI is key in that.
Absolutely. And so final reflections, Sean and Joanne, if I can ask you to sum up the AI Summit in a single word, Sean, what would your word be?
Energising.
Oh, okay. Energizing. Yeah, definitely. I'm feeling that. And just from this conversation too. And what about you, Joanne?
Yeah, I think it's a catalyst.
Yeah.
It's taking us on a journey.
Yeah, it really is. It's propelling us forward, certainly. Thank you both for your insights and discussion on this really important topic and your leadership within the university for our staff and for our students. It's been a fantastic discussion here today. AI at Birkbeck is evolving, and it is clear that this is not just a conversation about technology, but one about the people that interact with it, with our staff, our students, and how we're engaging in the sector and here at Birkbeck with generative AI. Thank you for listening to this podcast. And if you'd like to learn more, please visit the AI Connect SharePoint, reach out to the digital education team, and hopefully the AI champions who will be coming to your doors soon. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep innovating. Thank you very much.